About 3 weeks ago, I promised another video on the installation for Bluerail's board, which allows you to use your iPad, your iPhone, and to connect to your locomotive and run it on your layout. And so I did a small box opening for that, and now we've completed one installation. And I finally decided that I'd install it in an old Atlas F9, and so this is the installation. Over here we have of course the Bluerail board. We have a 9-pin GST that connects there. This is a pretty standard DCC connection and wiring loom. This one that I happen to already have had these little connectors, there's little orange pins there, and you pull those back and then you can slide your wire into the appropriate connection. And so that made the installation fairly simple and avoided a little bit of soldering. Over here I have we're connected to two 5mm LEDs for our lights. Track power is picked up through these wires here, coming from either truck, and this runs back to the board and then back to the motor again. If you go to Bluerail's website, there's a lot of instructions and guidance there, and if you follow those instructions and guidelines, really the installation isn't really that difficult. I think the hardest part is just figuring out where all your parts are going to go and how you're going to mount them. The Bluerail board in this particular case is just held in with some double-sided foam tape, and the same with this connector here. Of course, you don't need to use something like this. It's a little bit bulky, and you could just as easily solder your wires together, and I use a bit of shrink wrap to insulate them. So the installation went quite well, I felt, and as I said, I chose this old Atlas F9, probably not the pick of a lot of people's locomotives, maybe because it's fairly old, has a lot of older technology in it, but they actually can be repaired quite easily because they have some inherent difficulties. The axle gears often split. I've repaired these ones by using a bit of brass tubing that you can get from K&S, and I just file the shoulders down a little bit and put a pressured fit on to the gears, and then slip them back on the axles again, and that seems to work really quite well to repair them. The trucks tend to fall off, they break quite easily, but I've used a bit of angle and created a recess in the truck, and they mount very securely now, and they won't break off that easily. I've also installed my own pickups so that the locomotive runs a bit better, because the pickups would just break off when the side frames would break away. Up here in where the gears are and the housing, sometimes the axles will break. They're just molded plastic and they can snap quite easily. But these can be replaced by using a piece of 3mm shafting, and you're off and running again. So, an old locomotive, but easy to repair. So I'll put this back together again. Sometimes it's a little bit tricky to get the body back on again. These things are never as cooperative as you want them to be. So there we go. And then we'll reinstall that on the track. There we go. So I'm going to go back to my app, and I'm going to start the locomotive up. So I can download the app from the appropriate place, depending on which device you have. There's two apps. There's one for Bachman and there's one for Bluerail. They both work the same, and you can use either. So I've actually connected to that app. This is what the app looks like when you download it and start it up. There's several different faces that you can use, and so you can choose that in the app, and you can see up the top here that the locomotive is already connected. So we'll just go ahead and start that up. So can't see that too well, I'm afraid, but basically I have to click on there, and there's my startup button. And there we go, the locomotive started up. And I get some sounds with the, as you can hear the engine running. And we've got things like horns or bells. The site's quite intuitive. You just tap things. I've had my kids use this and they don't have any trouble with it at all. So it's definitely kid friendly. You can even make sure that you put in the speed that you want to use so the kids don't go berserk. So we'll just use the blue button here, and I like personally to just to tap that. There we go, we can see the locomotive is off and running. So it's just a little bit awkward to use both devices. So we reverse that. And off we go again. Move it backwards again. And then we turn on the headlight. I've also set up a ditch light, and I've set that up so that it flashes. All of this is contained within the app, so you can organize your lighting the way that you want. You can have up to 4 LEDs. Whoops. Now that was an accident. I didn't mean to shut it down. But basically that's the installation, and I'm really quite happy with the way that turned out. Thank you.